Our wonderful guest speakers will be taking us on their, showing about their journeys, Deidre and Keenan. So we're looking forward to this, and we're going to see pictures of some of the journeys on the Roman cover. And we'll be there for it. All right, well, what did you feel? Welcome. What did you feel? Welcome. What did you feel? A little bit of warm this morning, and just enjoy it. And we have in time worship, we have spirit and mind with us, and prayer. And with that, we're going to move on to the music and live worship. first today that I would like to ask. Has anybody ever had a dream that Corey's appeared in yet? No. Would it be a nightmare if it happened? You would have one? Yeah. It's good. Yeah. Would be, it could be kind of scary. So I hope that doesn't happen. So today we're talking about a pilgrimage. And Keaton, you're going to talk about your pilgrimage, right? And those your walking shoes? You got this in Spain. Wow, those are some cool shoes. Look at those shoes. Wow. How does that feel to wear Spanish shoes? It's okay. Well, I never bought in Spain, right? So yeah. But you can't buy them here, is what I'm saying. Oh, tell me you can't buy them here. Those are really cool shoes. Wow, way to go. He's here. Yeah. That's a friend's house. Yeah. Great at a friend's house. Pilgrimage? No. Let's ask Corey to see that kind of pilgrimage, okay? I think that's going to help us out here. Corey, good morning. Sorry, I gotta get my voice right? How many voices do I have? Too many. One. I only have two, right? Like this voice and Corey's voice. And I try to make it in other ones, but it doesn't really work. Corey, how you doing this morning? Okay. Good. Corey, yeah. Have you ever done a pilgrimage? What's a pilgrimage? Well, it's a trip. It's a special kind of trip. No, the only trip you ever take me on is from here, and then you put me back under that chair over there. And all week I sit there in the dark, and all week I wonder, will you take me somewhere? That wasn't even part of the bargain. You were just going to come here and use this for Sunday for a time of children. Was riding you have pants on? Yeah. I mean, it is a great question. If you take me to the store, maybe I can buy some pants. What's that? Why am I taking you to the store? Oh, but I have this shirt on. Where's my sister? Oh, yeah. My sister's at home. She's really tired. Yeah, she's still in bed, hopefully. Well, she's both a mom and a grandma and a caregiver, and some days the only time she gets to sleep. Yeah. Yeah, she needs to sleep. Yeah. So, Corey, would you like to go on a special trip? I'd love to go on a special trip. Where would you like to go? Anywhere, but I'm not sure. Corey, you're off around the chair right now. This is the only place I get to go. What kind of special trip would you like to go? Like, where do you think? I don't know. I don't know where to go. Do you think that you're going to hear about some special trips today? Kid, will you tell me about your special trip? We'll see. Do you really tell me about your special trip? Absolutely. So we're going to hear that. I don't sing. Yeah. No. You can get a handshake, right? You want to see? Yeah. That was a special trip right there. Someone said thank you to me. Thank you. Handshake. Okay. No, that's the same as right here now. Okay. All right, so we're going to hear about special trip. Special trip. It's going to be great, and we'll see about that. So, and you go talk about the shoes? Okay. Okay, will you, at the end of the service, will you walk around with those shoes to show them? Okay, it's all right. I would just walk around, Sean. What do you do? All right,
Spain with a local church in town. There were 7 of us who were on the trip. There was Connor, Linda, Tracy, Anna, Noah, Caitlin, and me. After the first day, we were having an honorary member, Anya, who grew up in California and was in Spain for school and learning Spanish. The trip was supposed to be for finding God, which I did, but not before finding the food. If you ever go to Spain, try the croquetas. They're so good, man. You have to try them. Anyways, once we got to Spain, we had to get to Sarria, which is the town we were. In total, we walked about 70 miles in 6 days. The first day, we walked to Porto Marine, which is where we found the first Brenda, which is the name we gave to a picture that was hung up all along the path in different spots and different days. This was the first of 3 God sightings I saw during the trip. Once we saw the picture, we started to assume that Brenda had probably passed away, and this was her family's way of saying goodbye. And I believe that this was God's way of showing me the reasons for seeking Him and the things that we should seek Him for, like the loss of a loved one. The second day, we made it to Palos de Rey, and by this day, we had already hiked 30 of the 70 miles, and everyone was tired. So we checked into an albergue, which is basically a giant bunkhouse that can hold up to like 100 people per room, and there were 3 rooms. So there's a lot of people. But that night was really fun because there aren't any walls in there, and so you can hear everybody sleeping. And there were at least 7 of them that just loud as the lawnmower. It was really bad. It was really bad. The third day, after an amazing night's rest, me and Caitlin, who I walked with a lot of the time, were going on our merry way when we entered this amazing forest, which was my second God sighting on this trip. The forest just kind of felt different. Its beauty was mesmerizing. All the trees were huge and old, they had amazing lives. And they had all green vines growing up the bark, and everything was covered in a layer of moss. It was amazing. I can't even explain it. It was just amazing. And it had to have been God trying to show me the beauty in life, and that it's always there, and that you just have to look. The 4th day was quite uneventful, unlike the 5th day, which is when I saw my 3rd God sighting. Me and Caitlin were walking all normal and passing everyone. Then we made it to a large group where I met a retired couple, and we started talking. My conversation with them was very enlightening. We talked about where we were from and why we were on the trip, and it was just a good old conversation. And I think that was God's way of showing me that you can always find Him anywhere and everywhere, just like this guy who came out of nowhere and greeted me, and we became friends. The final day we were on the trail was an easy 5 miles, but we were up really early because we had to make it to the church service before the church service started. So we were trucking, and we made it in time. You wouldn't believe how shiny it was in there. I mean, everything was gold. It was everything was gold. There was a passage that they allowed you in, and you could see the box that supposedly contained the parts of the Apostle James. It was amazing sitting there in the presence of that huge cathedral and just thinking back on all the times that I had seen God. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm going to remove this to talk. Well, this past April, I went to the island of Iona, Scotland. My cousin Penny and I had long wanted to go on a spiritual retreat together. We wanted to deepen our spiritual lives and our connection with each other. Another chaplain I know, Andrea Tatley, has led a few pilgrimages to Iona, Scotland, and we asked her to include us when she next planned a trip, which turned out to be April. We flew out Easter Sunday and got back May 1st, so it was kind of a magical time. We spent a year of anticipation, planning for, paying for, and praying that this trip would be all it needed to be. So why Iona, and where the heck is it? Iona is a tiny island in the Inner Hebrides off the Ross of Mull on the western coast of Scotland. For eons, this island has held special energy, first appreciated by indigenous people and Druids, and eventually by the Christians. Iona is described as a thin place where only tissue paper separates the material from the spiritual. Columba was an Irish abbot who arrived on Iona in the 6th century after either fleeing or being kicked out of Ireland, different stories, and brought Christianity to Scotland when he founded the abbey. The island has had no less a tumultuous history as everywhere else on earth, as the Christians kicked out the Druids, establishing a monastery and a nunnery. Eventually the nuns were chased out, and then there was the Viking raid in the 9th century that resulted in the slaughter of 80 monks. After hundreds of years, the abbey eventually, by the 16th century, the abbey was kind of in ruins because Protestantism came to Scotland. But in 1899, the abbey had been revived and restored and was gifted to the Church of Scotland by the Duke of Argyll on the condition that it be a place for all people to worship, regardless of religious background. The abbey is now home to the Iona community that was founded by George MacLeod. Members of the Iona community reside at the abbey year-round, being a sustainable community together not only on the island but worldwide. Penny and I flew to Glasgow via Amsterdam and joined our fellow travelers on a Tuesday evening. Wednesday morning, we boarded a train which took us through the Scottish hills and dales to Oban, where we got on a ferry. The ferry took us to Craignier on the Isle of Mull, where we rode a double-decker bus through Mull to Finfort. From there, we could see across the Sound of Iona as we were again ferried across. And that's the first picture you see on the front. We were on the island a full week when we reversed our trip to go back to Glasgow. I'll let you know that while this was a pilgrimage, we were not camping. We stayed at a small boutique hotel where we had comfortable beds and beautiful food. We had an established table where we met each morning for breakfast and, as we wished, and had supper together as a group. After breakfast and before supper, we gathered in a circle for reflective meditation, journaling, and small group time. I fell in love with a song that was played each day, the Healing Song by Adam Bauer, and continue to use it. And it brings me right back to that time on Iona. We had the bulk of the day to launch our own and explore the island and the abbey. We were also given an instruction to choose a nematon, or sacred space, we could return to every day. Mine was the view across the Iona as I sat on a bench that had the inscription, "Sit here and feel the peace of Iona." That's the second view. The Iona community held services at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. every day, which we didn't go every day, just saying. Here is where we found a small world because the volunteer clergy who led one of the services is a retired minister from the Twin Cities. Her sermon was about land and justice, reparations for Indigenous peoples. The community receives support from many causes like LGBTQIA+, Black Lives Matter, HIV/AIDS, the environment, hidden disabilities, and peace. Each day held a new adventure. We hiked to south on the island. The island is 3 miles long, 1.5 miles wide. But that was a 6-mile hike. Back and forth to south to Columba Bay and the Sea of New Beginnings, where we gathered rocks to bring home to someone who needed one. The path to that beach was a trek across a sheep pasture, which was also a golf course, with beautiful ocean views, complete with sheep droppings, sheep and bleeding lambs, and golf balls in play. A young couple with our group were so gracious to me and another woman like me with bad knees, walking with us and giving us a hand when needed, sticking with us 2 stragglers until we were safely back. On our day of silence, Penny and I hiked to the North Beach, where we could see the white sands of the monks and look for more rocks. We wrote notes to each other and to the lunch server and to our hotel staff upon our return, where I asked for a bag of ice for my feet. Another day, the group took a boat ride out to the Isle of Staffa, where we saw puffins and viewed Fingal's Cave, the same one that inspired Mendelssohn to compose Die Hebriden Overture. As we left the dock, I felt the power of the boat and the ocean waves under us, and I felt so much joy I actually screamed. Earlier in the week, I had drawn from a deck of cards that had photos of island landmarks and a word. My card showed the hermit's cell and the word solitude. The hermit's cell used to be a stone beehive type structure, but now is a ring of rocks and a doorway, with a doorway. So on our last full day on the island, I decided to head out on a solo pilgrimage to find the hermit's cell. I was able to find it on my GPS and received interesting verbal directions from our wonderful host at the hotel that included the words, "Turn at the second blip." And off I went through pasture land, taking advantage of Scotland's right to roam, which means anyone can walk anywhere they want. Just close the gate behind you. I found myself stuck a couple of times, crawling over, finding a nice spot in the fence where someone had graciously pulled the barbed wire down so I could get over. And later, someone had pulled everything else down so I could get under. But with that in the GPS, I found it. I had brought my note card on which I was to write a letter to myself. I sat down in the ancient ruin and began, I didn't tell you what the hermit cell was. It used to be a beehive structure, but now it's just a ring of rocks with a doorway. Did I say that? Sorry, I'm repeating myself. Well, I sat down and wrote, and just as I was almost finished, I heard voices with German accents, and soon saw people coming over the rise. I busied myself with my letter until I was joined by 16 German pilgrims, saying, "You are easy to find. You're a good guide with your red sweatshirt." So much for solitude. After I took photos for them with a lot of joy and laughter, except one woman was very frustrated. She had to move after she sat down. I think she was tired. I set off back to my group. I learned that sometimes when you're following a path in the Scottish pasture land, it might actually be a stream. And despite falling into and crawling out of a bog, thank goodness for merino wool socks, I managed to get through the fences again using the Abbey steeple in the distance as my compass. Someone asked me, where was it that you went in Scotland again that changed your life? I went to Iona with my mind wide open, looking for a spiritual experience, and that's what I received. I was able to deepen my connection with my cousin, who we now think of ourselves as sisters. I experienced joy, peace, and learned that solitude is a place I can come home to myself in a new way. It is there I find that the heartbroken world is where I am meant to be. A spiritual experience is not about piety, but about where we wake up to the needs of others and access the love we need to serve. A spiritual experience is one that brings us a sense of connection not only with God, but with ourselves and with others. It is letting go of outcomes for anything in our lives, giving them over to the hand of God, and watching with wide-eyed anticipation for what happens next. As Travis reminded us last week, God is with us wherever we are. With willingness and open-mindedness, we can have spiritual experiences every day without going to faraway places. But it sure is fun. There's a Gaelic saying that those who come to Iona will come, not once, but 3 times we shall see.
let's take a moment now to steep in Kian and Deidre's stories. I invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable and bring your attention to your breath for several deep breaths. And I encourage you to bypass your thinking mind and simply allow an image from either Kian or Deidre's stories to rise up in your awareness. Breathe into that image, imagining each of your senses in that moment. And then put out the question, what does this image tell me about God, the universe, myself? Simply allow a response to rise up in you. When have you experienced a moment similar to what Kian or Deidre described? And allow yourself to feel any gratitude for this big, wide world and all of its experiences and moments, adventures. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes and find those slips of paper in your pews and very, very clearly and legibly write down a gratitude, a blessing, a hope, an intention. And those that you would like shared aloud in community, you can place in the larger wooden bowl, and those you would like left unspoken, you can place in the smaller metal bowl. prayers for all grieving families.
Thankful for the reminder that the journey is often more important than the destination.
Thanks for my rock from the sea of new beginnings. My new beginnings are flourishing.
Praying for our political leaders, may they have a greater measure of compassion and wisdom.
Grateful for Betsy's life and her teacher friends who shared wonderful stories to help me know her better.
Please sing The Circle of Life from The Lion King. Thank you, from Joe.
Thank you, Kian and Deidre, for the inspiration to go on a spiritual journey.
My God sighting today, being here to listen to Kian and Deidre share their stories.
I am grateful to sit in a room with others who may be as brokenhearted and yet hoping for hopefulness as I am.
Thankful for the life of Betsy Ford. Thankful for Betsy and Keith. Thankful for Marion and Victoria.
We were blessed yesterday with lovely music, loving words, and fabulous memories shared about a powerful, beautiful lady. Betsy, you are forever in our hearts.
Wonderful sense of place and people right here at Judson Church.
I am grateful for the human impulse to seek beauty and meaning. Thank you, Kian and Deidre.
May peace and love and a sense of community prevail throughout the world.
Hope, to let love replace fear, to let love replace despair, to let love replace selfishness in all I say and do and think.
Gratitude to this Judson community for drawing me here most Sundays.
So grateful to the Ford family for the loving memory shared yesterday. It was powerful and tender.
Thank you so very much to all in the Judson community who have helped celebrate the life of Betsy Ford. We love her. We love you.
So very grateful for my sister's clean scan yesterday after 2 years of treatment for cancer.
Gratitude for opportunities to be still and soak in the connections with all creation.
A few more prayers for us to think about. Yesterday was also it was a 1-month anniversary of the Annunciation shooting. So there was both a service at Annunciation, there was a mass at the cathedral, and there was also a rally at the Capitol for gun restrictions. This week was also the last Tunnel of Love, and I want to mention that because I received numerous emails and phone calls asking about it. And no one heard about it from the news stories that were great from this week. They'd all heard it from word of mouth, and there were people from North Carolina, people from Philadelphia, people from California wanting to know, tell me about this Tunnel of Love. And I'll say it I mention that because we've been doing the same thing over and over again when we talk about gun violence and we talk about how we're going to move away forward. What happens is both, there's a tragedy, and there's heartbreak, and there's all this energy to do something, and it seems like there's an opening for about 30 seconds that something may actually change, and then everybody just hardens and sides, and then we just end up with the same kind of pattern going over and over again, and we're curious, why aren't things changing? We keep doing the same thing, but nothing. We keep getting the same results. Maybe we need to change strategies. Maybe there's some way, and I think maybe that tunnel of love was a start of a new type of strategy. And I don't have the answer about where it goes, but I think there's something there to hold on to and think about. I mean, why are all these people so interested in that and not like, where's the next rally going to be? I think there's something there. We need to pay attention to it, and let's just continue to keep our hearts open on this. Yeah. Do you remember the name? Do you know the name Frances Perkins? She was the first secretary. She was the first woman Secretary of Labor in the FDR's administration. She was also a devout Episcopalian. Do you know that every day during, once a month during her entire work as Secretary of Labor, she spent in a silent retreat in D.C. She thought that this was her vocation as a Christian to be the Department of Labor Secretary. It needed that kind of clarity. And when we think about all the things that we're doing, it's very easy to get frustrated and burned out and think that there's never going to be another way forward. But having that kind of pattern in your spiritual practice is something to think about. And when we think about especially how we're going to move forward with how we deal with violence in our society, 1 day a month in silence, one Wednesday at a tunnel of love may start breaking things through in a different way. Yesterday was a beautiful service for Betsy Ford. And it was what the dichotomy for me was looking out during the service and knowing that there was a ton of Judson people here but not seeing them. And that they were all downstairs. When you went downstairs, it was just this flood of people. Just the lift that it took for that yesterday, I just want to say thanks for showing up, giving up a Saturday, a beautiful September Saturday to help celebrate. So thank you for people who did that. We want to keep Eileen in our prayers. As you can tell, Eileen's here. I didn't see you. You just got here, didn't you? Yeah. Yeah. Better late than never. Eileen's treatments are zapping her energy a little bit rougher than she had planned. So her office hours are roughly 10 to 2 during the week, and even that can give depending on how things go. So if you need something, please just call or text or email or just we'll figure out ways to get things done. But keep Eileen in your prayers, and we continue to pray for others in our community in the same situations. All right. Lastly, I'll just say at our mother church, at Calvary Church this morning, they are voting on a new pastor. Christian Collins Wynn is the candidate there, so we pray for Christian. Some of you may remember Christian and his family worshipped at Judson for a season a few years ago, and we just pray for Christian's new pastorate and hope for that, for continued good relations between the two of us. By that I mean Calvary and Judson, not me and Christian. We get along fine for that. All right, there we go. We'll leave the prayer in a bowl, and let me lead us in a prayer this morning. God of grace and God of glory, God of comfort and solace, God of questions and silent answers. We gather this morning with broken hearts, with grieving hearts, with prayers for a way forward in this world. Forgive us for the times we've not shown up when we needed to. Forgive us for not having the energy. Forgive us for thinking things will never change. Forgive us for thinking that our lives do not matter. We're thankful for people in our lives who have that blessed gift of constancy, that just don't give up on us, that continue to see the good in us, that continue to reteach us of our loveliness. Help us. Oh God, help us. Amen. For our call to offering, it could go on for a half hour. We could list all of those, the things, the great things that are going on here, and all of the needs that we have. But most importantly, it's more about looking around you and seeing this community of people and this place that we call home, that our souls have found rest and solace and comfort in. About just responding in thanksgiving for all that's around us. as you see, we just have a couple announcements. I'll invite Beth Waterhouse to come forward at this time as she's making her way up here. If you haven't got your COVID shots, we encourage you to do so. I know it's been kind of hard. There's been some confusion on whether they're available. You know, our primary care doctor did not have them. And then we went to try to get an appointment at Walgreens, and they said, no, we couldn't. But then CVS said yes. So, and then my kids found out that no, Walgreens said yes for them. So just be persistent with it. And your arm's going to hurt for a couple of days, but we'll all be better for it. Rates are rising if you look at the rates here in Minnesota, so be careful. Be careful. Okay?
The rates are rising?
The rates of COVID positivity, yeah.
Uh-oh, well, all right.
I don't make the news.
And here I am saying, please gather.
Safely.
Yeah, right, safely. Okay, so look in your bulletin and use this, rip it out, and post it somewhere this week. You will be able to drive around the lakes to get here at 7 p.m. on Saturday, October 4th. The marathon is until Sunday, am I right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So Peter Mayer is just a soul. Kean, when you talk about where God is, I think God is inside Peter Mayer's guitar. And so come, enjoy yourself. Sometimes we come to Judson and we give, and we kind of go away tired. I think when you come to Judson to hear Peter Mayer in concert, you will be filled up. So come. And the other bit of news is kind of fun. We received word on Friday that we received the grant, or we will be getting the grant, that allows us to do a evaluation of this lovely structure, this 100-plus-year-old structure. This is not giving us the rights to get listed on the historic preservation list quite yet. It's quite a multi-layered process. But the first grant allows us to work in tandem with a wonderful historian named Rolf Anderson, who lives in this community. And Rolf will teach us a lot about the history of our building, the architecture, the architect, the city at the time of its building, and all of that good stuff. So we will gain wholeheartedly from working with Rolf. Now, the grant is for $7,700 to pay Rolf, so it's not coming into our budget, sadly enough, but it does enhance the knowledge that we carry about our building and about our own history as a place. So I'm excited to work with Rolf, and if you want to join me in that effort, or you want to stay in touch, or whatever, but we'll be giving you periodic history lessons about ourselves in the next year or so. Okay.
Hey, Beth, yes, great stuff. Yeah, I just read another church that went through this, and it was their 36-page document that was, it was fascinating to read what they were able to find with all the research that happened. So it's exciting. This is very exciting. And that's on October 4th. On October 5th it is Marathon Sunday. And we have, over the years, fought the marathon unsuccessfully, right? So why do we keep doing this? So we have moved the service from 9:30 to 5. So let me just ask you a question to make sure you heard this. Will there be a church service on October 5th at 9:30? No. Okay, great. What time will it be? 5. Okay, good. Okay, so now you can say, you repeated it back to me. So that's just a little, pedagogic device, right? So we got that. So that's going to be happening at 5. It is called, an alliteration that Polly came up with, Pizza, Puppets, and Prayers. So it will mean that we are eating pizza. So just as a rough guess, I'm not committing you to anything, but how many of you think that you will be here on October 5th at what time? 5 for pizza. How many of you think? We're just trying to get a rough idea. Oh, okay, all right. Okay, now look at those who didn't raise their hand and stare at them just for a little bit. No, we're not gonna do that. Okay, that gives us a rough idea of what we're gonna do there. At 4 o'clock, you are invited to come for a puppet making workshop. What does that mean? We will be tearing strips of cloth, preparing for paper mache puppets. So we're gonna make saint puppets for All Saints Day. We're gonna need some time to do it, and this is the kickoff for that. We'll be making, and these puppets are going to be huge. They'll take 3 people to walk around with. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. Is Cindy that excited, Bob, or is this? No, yes, great, okay. If you couldn't see it, I thought Cindy was going to pop out of the pew. It looked like there's so much energy coming out of there. So that'll take place, and then that'll take us to 4, and then at 5 p.m. we'll have it in Fellowship Hall, and let's take special music. We will talk about the special music that'll be happening. Remember that wonderful foursome of Austin and Susan and Thea and Jason? Do you remember that amazing foursome? Guess who's going to be the special music on October 5th? Oh, that's right. They're going to be playing lots of, what's going to be the lineup? Have you got it yet, or it's in development? In development, yeah. It's a secret, of course, it's going to be a secret. So that'll be next week, so we're excited about that. So, all right, we're almost done. I also want to say that today, after you have a little bit of coffee time and everything, this is the second time that Dr. Catherine Corey will be with us in the Ann Judson room talking about the Gospel of John. Today, her presentation will be on the Samaritan woman and Nicodemus. She's going to do an in-depth presentation of that. So if you were there last time, it was a great time. If you think, well, I couldn't be there, but I can be at this one, even better. She's a wonderful teacher, and she'll get you right back. She'll get us all up to speed quickly. All right, that's the announcements. Everybody good with those? All right, take a look in your bulletin, make sure, double check everything, and let's have a blessing. Before that, I just want to say again, thanks to Larry, but also thanks to Deidre and Ken for taking us somewhere this morning. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And I invite you on a journey as well, to find God in unexpected and very expected places, to take this light that you have within you and shine it in some dark places. Because just your presence being there will change things. So go forth with a small bit of joy, go forth with a small bit of grace, and may the peace of Christ be with you now and forevermore. Amen.
Awesome.